So, has the Lord Reynard case served to raise questions about how to act when faced with a sex pest? Who better to ask than three women who across the generations have seen a thing or two. They are the journalist and broadcaster and much else besides, Joan Bakewell, the Labour MP Stella Creasy, and television presenter and journalist Anne Robinson. First of all, Joan Bakewell, do you think something of this is a generational issue?
Absolutely. It's quite clear that older people are taking the view it's not much harm, is it? What's a hand on a knee between friends? It doesn't matter very much. They're making it a big fuss about it. It's unnecessary. And the young women who are the part of the completely liberated generation are saying, I'm sorry, that's absolutely against the rules and we're not having it. And they are being adamant in the way that both sides are being adamant, and they're failing.
But is that because older women there was no recourse?
There was no recourse because the entire culture was behaving in this way when I was younger.
And did you ever face that kind of, what was it Michael White called it, the clammy hand?
All the time, of course. All the time.
All the time?
Oh, of course, yes. And I mean, within television.
As a young woman without power, or when you were older?
Well, when I was in my early 30s, I was working on television, and it was quite common. Both guests on the programme would give you a quick grope, other colleagues would give you a grope, report to the editor. The editor was doing it. I mean, it was part of the culture.
But what did you, I mean, because this is the response, and I'm really interested to know, Anne Robinson faced the same thing. So what was your response?
Well, your response was, well, you grew up knowing that this is what men did, some of them, not all of them, obviously, and you learnt social behaviours that preempted what was going to happen. You got used to
mentally preempted it.
Yes, you could anticipate it happening. You could then take steps, move away, ask to stop, whatever, and deal with it. And which is, in a sense, what they're still asking today, and it's too late.
Is it acceptable to still ask just to deal with it?
Yeah, well, I think, actually, Joan's right. I think it's slightly better when my generation, which was the next one, came along, but I can't ever remember it happening to me. Maybe I wasn't attractive enough. But when I think that since the 60s, such fabulous things have happened for women, the glass ceilings have disappeared, clever girls become clever engineers and get the jobs they deserve. What astonishes me is in all that progress, that no one has thought that women have to learn how to deal with treachery. I'm not criticising women. Learn how to deal with treachery in the workplace. And actually, it is sad that really clever women, like these Lib Dem women, clever, educated, never felt that they could deal with it at the time, or that they could deal with it and were frightened to have their names mentioned so many years later.
Well, as a younger woman in this mix, what do you make of that? Because, of course, we must say these are allegations which Lord Reynard strenuously denies. For younger women, why do younger women not feel that the law is there, the civil law, the criminal law there, to help them?
Because, and I think this discussion sums up precisely the problem. Why is it for women sitting around talking about how can we cope with behaviours rather than a mix of both? Because men are concerned about this behaviour as well. We're not making the progress that we think we're making, Anne, and part of it is these kind of problems. We were 100 years on from women being called rabbits for being members of Parliament, the idea that you give them a vote. 100 years on, we're only an 80-20 society, so 4 out of 5 of my colleagues are men. And actually, that's not unusual in British society. It's the same in the media, it's the same in universities.
But have you
we're a
faced
minority,
that kind of
and one of the reasons.
attitude?
Well, I think one of the reasons why we're a minority is because we're asking women to cope with these kind of behaviours. We're sort of saying it's up to us to adapt to the world as it is, rather than for men and women to come together and say, how do we have equality?
That's not strictly true, Stella. What I'm saying is that if women could be encouraged to learn how to cope and not be bullied,
how about we tell men to stop doing it?
I mean, do you think
men have not behaved badly? Look,
but do you
it
think
has never been inconvenient for Lord Reynard to behave any other way. No one has made it inconvenient.
We don't know how he's behaved, of course.
We don't, but we do know that Nick Clegg thinks he should apologise.
Okay. It's not
a fair fight. We're not talking about a clumsy pass at somebody who's an equal. We're talking about somebody in a position of authority who's been alleged to have actually abused that position of authority.
Stella, do you think anybody would come up to any of us women sitting here and attempt to put their hand up
Yeah,
our
but
skirts.
that's
Of course not, because we are formidable women.
But then what about... So, hang on. 20-somethings
do you think that men
out.
have any responsibility in this debate at all?
Yes, of course they do.
Right, so let's stop finding ways of focusing on women's behaviour and start saying what is the kind of behaviour everybody should respect.
I mean,
what is equality
You've got
really
to
look
start
Joan,
by
if-
women not putting up with it.
Yes, but
No,
Joan
we've got to start
Bakewell,
by
hang
men
on.
stopping.
Joan Bakewell, some of the response in the papers has been that a swift knee to the groin would do. But actually, is this not what Stella's saying, which is actually why should women have to respond in a particular way?
I quite agree with her. And we have come a long way. It's a long journey, this.
But
It's a long journey, and we've already got law on board. And we want
do you
to see
think do you think a lot of young women who are harassed at workplace would even think that they could go to the law? Because would they really, really think that it would do them any good, either with their colleagues or actually with their careers? Isn't this the problem, that it's still not taken seriously enough?
That's why this is a watershed moment, because women have got to feel that they can do that. Now, the reason they don't is there are various social reasons. I mean, we're living through an absolutely inundation of highly sexualised advertising, pop music, culture, fashion and so on. So they're part of that view as well, and they lack the confidence to do it because, one, they could lose out socially, two, they could lose out professionally. They don't feel able to act, which is why we've got to give them the confidence to know that the law is on their side, and so are half the population.
But do you think the majority of young women know that unwanted sexual touching is a criminal offence? And harassment in the workplace is a civil offence.
Even if you know that, until you're in that position yourself, I don't want women to feel they have to be formidable to be able to deal with these situations. I want people to know that they will be believed and it will be taken seriously. And that isn't about the person themselves. We've got to stop the focus being on the person making the accusation and start saying, how do we have a culture that says we have these laws for a reason? Because actually nobody should have to put up with this, male or female.
Thank you all very much indeed.